be without all those performances on that stage. And the Apollo, it's the beginning of all of it.
Music and art provided an avenue out of the legacy of slavery.
In spite of the circumstances, we found the joy, the humor, the freedom of truth.
The music speaks to something so human that even the people who hold you underneath their boot can't help but sing along.
This music just connected. When we first came to New York, the Apollo was the first place we wanted to go.
I've come a long way to be able to do this. It means a lot to me.
For 82 years, people have been coming to the Apollo Theater to boo the amateurs.
They kept it real.
First time the Miracles and I ever played at the Apollo, we were just kids, man. I was only 17. I was a nervous wreck. Here comes Ray Charles.
Will the Apollo continue to be a vibrant space of Black expression, or will it be a shrine to the past?
The Apollo can be the place that creates new works born out of the African-American cultural experience.
So we are developing Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates.
How many hills and mountains
Attacked every day in struggle.
The Apollo has always represented truth. You had to bring all of you, all of your spirit, all of your soul, all of your God-given talent.
We're the builders of a nation.
We have made something down here. They made us into a race, but we made ourselves into a people.
Today, we have, in my estimation, one of the most beautiful women in the world, in many ways. We met in a life-altering workshop led by the legendary Corey Allen, and I'm laughing because I heard Corey say, "Oh, please," and I'll say, "Yes, please." She is a blessing of friendship and family in my life. She's a producer, executive producer of documentaries, and she's done documentaries such as Foo Fighters, Back and Forth, Pavarotti, the Bee Gees, How Can You Mend a Broken Heart, the Beatles, 8 days a week, the touring years, and she is an Emmy-winning producer of The Apollo, a partner at White Horse Pictures, and the head of documentaries and director of features, Jeanne Elfant Festa. Hello, my dear.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm very good. It's a beautiful day, clear skies.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm very good.
Well, okay. First of all, I'm like looking at that background and I go, there's that Emmy.
I know, right? Yeah, it's right there.
Oh my God.
That was exciting. You were my first call. I called you before I called my mom.
Really?
Oh gosh, we're recording. Yeah, I did. I was crying my eyes out. I was so excited to tell you because we've been through so much together. And, we were in that class with Corey when Corey said, "What do you want to do with your next breath?" as he said before every class. And I didn't answer with one word. I told him what I was doing, and he said, sounds to me, or he said something to the effect that, "So you're a producer."
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's interesting. I'm like, as you know, I get a little emotional here and there, but I have to say, I watched the Apollo. It blew me away. It literally blew me away. I'm still affected by it.
Thank you. Thank you.
And it's interesting how you sometimes, and usually I don't go with it. I just go with the flow of whatever's happening in the interviews. But I'm like going right to that film because it's still so in my head. I mean, it's more than a history lesson. It first of all, it brought my dad back to me when I was watching it, because the music and Ella Fitzgerald and all those clips.
Billie Holiday, yeah.
And Billie Holiday. And I was feeling my dad like watching it with me. And
that's how I felt too. It was my dad. Yeah, because my dad and my mom used to tell us legendary stories about the people that they used to see in Harlem. My dad and mom grew up in New York, and they would, from very meager means, and they would, take a train to Harlem, and they would sneak up a back stairwell, and they would get the very, very top of the theater, just to hear, these people play. And they were. I remember going into the Apollo Theater and telling that story. And I remember my, one of my partners said, "Oh man, I don't know if you should have said that your dad's parents snuck in," and without missing a beat later, Janelle Procope said, that back stair, it's like sealed off now. There's, it's not sealed off, but it's locked from happening today. But yeah, my parents told us legendary stories about musicians, because my dad wanted to be a saxophone player. He played the saxophone,
right.
But he ended up going to, med school. And much of his own, music was really part of his being. He used to always listen to, oh my gosh, Billie Holiday and Sarah Vaughan and the great saxophone players.
Well, and what? How did you hear that? Okay, we're going to do the Apollo next. The next project will be the Apollo, and also how many years from start to finish did it take to put this all together?
Well, the Apollo was rare. We were introduced to the president of the Apollo Theater, Janelle Procope, through agency. They were interviewing film companies to tell their story about the Apollo Theater. And we went through several directors, only because each director had it was difficult to the raising the funds was always difficult in a documentary, because it's not, people, it's just not as, I guess, glamorous, but and then of course a big reason was, as I said prior, we went through 3 different directors, and it was only because Lee Daniels had prior commitments. Originally he was coming in, another director came in and out, and things happen, that sometimes that happens.
Yeah.
Even in narrative features. And but I think that the best things, it's like, the best things are worth waiting for. And when we met Roger Ross Williams, my partner Cassidy Hartman on the film, I'd seen his film Life Animated, and it was absolutely beautiful. And she said, "Have you seen this film?" And so I watched it, and then we took a meeting with him. We were introduced to him through one of Lee Daniels' partners now, Effie Brown. She's a remarkable filmmaker. And I think her company's called Game Changer Films. And she introduced us to Roger Ross Williams. And then Roger had introduced us to Lisa Cortez, who also produced it with Cassidy and myself.
Yeah.
And Lisa had, and it's a Lee Daniels connection, because Lisa had worked with, produced a Lee Daniels film. And Lisa lives in Harlem. And it was like, it still gives me goosebumps, because when they came aboard,
yeah,
it was like the sky opened up and we knew that this is our right team. It's really very true.
Wow. It's true, like when it's the right time, it'll happen, huh?
Exactly. Yeah. And it did take a long time. I mean, it was several years. Gosh, I think it was like close to 7 years actually, but that's very unusual. It's very unusual. And we're blessed with the partnership that we had with the Apollo Theater family, because they stuck by us, because we wanted to tell, which I believe we did from the beginning, the story of a community and and give a reason why the Apollo Theater means so much to our community. And it was, and I'm very proud of that film. And we're also blessed that Ta-Nehisi Coates' book, Between the World and Me, was presented in a stage reading through Camila Forbes, who is the head producer at the Apollo Theater. Right. And Camila went to college with Ta-Nehisi Coates, and he is like our, he's equivalent, he's our James Baldwin of today. Yeah. His books are so personal, and it gives you, I'm sure your mom said the same thing. You never know a person until you walk in their shoes. And, guess what? You could really never walk in somebody else's shoes. Yeah. You can get an idea, a glimpse, and Ta-Nehisi gives you that glimpse brilliantly and movingly. And
so many levels, levels. I mean, I went through the relaxing of, oh my God, here's my father watching this film with me, and then just sort of like being engulfed in it. And I wrote some notes here too about the how it took you into different emotions. I mean, it was a roller coaster ride, and it was about the enjoyment of the music, and then the shame of what was going on to the community, but how everybody was, how music is intertwined within life so much. And then the horror too of the white supremacist. There's one part at the beginning, you actually see a white supremacist, and later you see it in a different way. And then also the anger that you're still dealing with the power struggles. I mean, that's what I love about a film, and what you brought and everyone involved were the levels, and it took you on a ride. It wasn't a film that you went, oh, how did they do that? Or this, you were like.
Well, we tried to have in all of our films, we try to have a forward-looking aspect to it. The Apollo Theater is a live, living theater. It has a glorious, powerful past that is, and a river, by the way, literally runs through that theater. Underneath the theater is a running river that runs through the theater. So that you can feel that. You can feel what that means metaphorically, of course, and what that means in our society. And sadly, we've had and continue yesterday with these hate crimes are with our country. It's mind-blowing, and it's heartbreaking, and it's frustrating. And you'd think that we would heal and evolve, and this country has a long way to go. Yeah. And I think that so with it, as far as that aspect of it, the political aspect of it, it is forever intertwined in the globe. I mean, not just in New York, and not just in Harlem, and not just in it is infused in the world. You think of all the music that went through, and of course, like you were saying, music brings us all together, and it also highlights protest songs. I mean, Billie Holiday's "Strange Fruit" was and is indicative of how you can shine a light on what's happening And I mean, that is a prime example. And, you know, she was afraid to sing it there, and she I don't, you know, that, and that she had an issue with that, as we know, with that
and
song.
some of the clips, the rare clips, like the ones of Eartha Kitt.
Isn't that great?
Oh my God. And you know, it's not clear. It's a little fuzzy, but it's
I know.
brilliant. It's like looking through, it's like, ooh, what are we peeking at? And then,
I know.
and then when it went from that also to the men dressed up in women's clothing.
Yeah, right. The juxtaposition, and also, you know, because the theater has to survive. So he was talking about how he needed to survive that time when they had a really bad, you know, freeze, right? Literally, it was a bad storm, and so he put the dancers in. It was really difficult to edit that, because there's so much that went through those doors.
Right.
That was a reflection on what was happening in the world that we live in.
Well,
and that's what art is, right? It's a reflection of what we're experiencing. And all of that went through those doors and continues to.
And to bring and make a film that ultimately won an Emmy with so much going on. I mean, you had its main characters, but you had so many supporting characters. I mean, the Supremes and little Stevie Wonder, and
I know,
and the woman in the front row, and
I love
oh
her.
my God!
Yeah.
You know, I think back, and the man who took everybody on tours through the Apollo.
Yeah. Oh, Billy Mitchell. Oh, he's a gift from God. Really, a gift from God. When we were, you know, I brought my entire family there over the years. So my sister, my brother-in-law. I don't think my brother and my sister-in-law were with me, but my kids were with me. My husband was with me. You hadn't, you know, he's forever in my life. I love that man. He really taught. He would say to me, "This is going to be our history," you know, and I was like, "Yes, I mean, yes, this film was a collaboration with the theater and everybody that walked through those doors, and our leader was Roger. If you've seen any of Roger Ross Williams films, he takes you on his journey with him." And you are, you know, he in a visual sense, he of course, because it's film, but you're on this journey with him. Whatever, so you're seeing it through, and you know, it was so hard to edit that. You know, Jeanne was our editor at you know, brilliant editor. And Cassidy, my partner here at White Horse Pictures, she was the writer, and it, you know, it was very difficult. And we were, like I said, the blessing was Ta-Nehisi Coates too, because he enabled us this bookend, sad, you know, of racial discrimination that's still happening in America. And he, you know. Kamala allowing us into that room as they were creating that, it illustrates how we can, you know, attempt to heal and attempt to understand. And I feel like what's great about this film, it's constantly going on college tours. It's an evergreen film. You know, you know, there's discussion points, and we're really blessed.
It's interesting too that you brought up the word heal, because I wrote that several times in there, how it does take you to that point of healing. And then I don't want to talk about every little point in it, because some people haven't seen it, but you get to this point again after going low and there was violence, to seeing a beacon on that stage, you know, without mentioning names, but and it brought you so much joy again, but then it had that bittersweet thing afterwards, knowing what we're going through today in our lives. So it's like, oh, oh, oh. Then the song at the end, you gotta keep on going.
Brilliant song. Oh my God. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, we could spend the whole hour on this one film, but I want to go back to the roots, and not of mine, but but of the roots of how. When did you decide to become a producer?
I'm trying to think, what year was that when we were sitting in that classroom?
So it was that moment.
Yeah, it was that moment. Yeah, it was that moment. I had yeah, it was that moment. I had a lot of projects I was auditioning for, and I had a bit part in a film, and a director had an idea for a script, and I attached I said to this guy, well, I'll just attach an actor to this, and we'll get this funded in no time. And he looked at me like I was crazy, but I was fearless. It's like the old, if you don't, what is that expression? If you don't know it enough, like, to be afraid, and you just do it anyway, or I don't know, I wish I had that at the top of my head.
Where does the fearlessness come from?
I don't know, probably because my dad always said you can't take Brooklyn out of a girl. So maybe that's it.
Yeah.
It's like you just go ahead and do it anyway. Feel the fear and do it anyway, I guess. And my mom, from Coney Island of all places, and was, is a tough woman. And, I watched her evolve into a professional woman in a time when, that wasn't a thing. And, that was a big lesson. And, to start a career at 40 is a big step, because that's when I did.
Well, and it shows you that you could start at 40, you could start, at 50 or whatever, and you could still keep on seeing. I just see the Emmy, even the, it's just shining there. So it stands for that. It stands for going after your dreams.
Well, Lucille Ball had she was a brilliant actress, like, really sunk into her roles, and did the work, the backstory work. And if she studied the craft, and just as quote unquote, they used to call her the queen of bees, meaning like not the greatest work, or not A-list films. And when I Love Lucy premiered, she was 40. She had her first child when she was 40, and I Love Lucy premiered.
Yeah.
So then that changed the entire trajectory of television. And Desi, coming from a background of, he didn't immigrate to this country. He was forced out of Cuba in a violent coup, and saw his house being burned, his family pets being killed in front of him I think he was 12 years old or 13 years old. These are times you remember, you don't forget that.
Yeah.
Seeing your animals strung up, your neighbor's parents strung up, dead, heads, violent coup. And they had to run with their lives with whatever they could carry. And he came alone to this country and never gave up. So, which brings us to like what I'm working on right now. I know that was a big leap.
Yeah.
But that their stories have always been a beacon, and it was always a story I always wanted to tell. And it's unique to say that I'm not 40 anymore, but it's a testament to things that you think about, or things that in your life that you admired, people that you admired, that you look to and look towards when you're feeling, I can't do it anymore. When you feel, I can't do it, I can't take this, and then all of a sudden you get this like God shot,
Yeah.
and something hits you from above or in your solar plexus, wherever, and you feel, oh my, all of a sudden there's something that says, Lucille will pop up. August was her birthday, and August 6th is her birthday, and I think it was like August years and years and years ago,
Yeah.
when and I just remember going down a rabbit hole and saying, "Oh my God, Lucy, I could do this." Okay,
Yeah.
all right, don't give up.
Don't give up.
Keep your head down and focus. And you work hard. She worked hard.
What is it on like for you as a producer? What is it? I mean, every day is different, but let's throw out a day that you get up in the morning and then all the way to the evening. What is
Well, I
it?
try to get up really early. I try to start, have a good solid exercise at 7 to 8, or sometimes 6:30 to 7:30, depending on when the actual first day meeting starts or phone call starts. But that is a given, because there's something about a physical exercise and organize something in the house, here, on a treadmill or.
Do you do this before you eat?
Before I eat. Before I eat.
Okay, I'm taking this in
Get out
because
of
I
bed.
have my bike.
Get out of, get out. The first thing you do is you get out of bed. I always brush my teeth. That's the first thing I do, no matter what, even if I'm not, whatever, no matter what. Put on my workout clothes, freezing, and then, start a slow jog or do some yoga, Pilates, but it's always a run and incorporated with some yoga, Pilates or something, and a deep cleansing breaths while you're doing it. So, which is because you're setting your intention for the day. And it's also a great way to get out any tension, to start your day a little bit kind of tired, but physically tired, not tired like, oh, I didn't sleep well, tired.
Yeah.
And even if I didn't sleep well, by the way, I do this every day without exception. It's super important, I think, for your psyche.
Yeah.
And then, there's a lot of reading to do, a lot of reading. So whether or not it's organizing, making sure that every book that you're reading, somebody else is also reading it. And then you could talk through a breakdown. So we have, I've got, when I say I have an assistant, my assistant's more than an assistant. He's, he does assistant-y things, but like, even if I were in the office, I would never ask him to fetch me a cup of coffee. It's more like, let's sit down and discuss like how we could tackle all of these books. And, we also have a great group of interns that periodically fold in and out. And honestly, so far, so amazing interns we've had, 4 of which we've hired. So, and they've cycled through, like they've gotten, better jobs, you know what I'm saying? So they're all in the field, and they're all remarkable human beings. We're lucky as heck. And so we focus on each project and each layer that we need to look at. So, with Lucy, there's a lot of books that we first came up, like, if you do a search, you find out like the top 3 books. And then as you get into it, you're going, oh, wait a minute, I didn't see that one. Or the writer wrote a book. Well, my goodness, we got to go read that, meaning Madeline Pugh and Bob Carroll Jr., they wrote a book, and, everybody did these wonderful Emmy interviews. So you got to watch all their interviews, which are lengthy. They're very, very long. And if you're an Emmy, you could watch, if you're in the Emmy, the television, whatever that, you could get in and watch these.
It takes months.
It's so, I don't have time to read socially. Do you know what I'm saying? So I don't have time to, my boss calls it the bandwidth. It's like a computer bandwidth, like your brain's like a Rolodex. So what's coming up next? And when I think about all of the things that I read for Pavarotti, and learning opera and learning the art of what it means to breathe through diaphragm. And
now, were you a fan of opera before, or did you come more?
I was a fan of Luciano's.
Oh yeah.
So the only opera that I ever knew was Turandot, because that's the famous Nessun Dorma.
Yeah.
It's the only opera I knew. And oh, of course, wait a minute, and others. And now I'm drawing a blank on the names. No, I didn't know Tosca actually until we did the film.
Yeah.
And but what was so much fun and so much so so fulfilling was learning about an art form. So I know I'm switching gears from Lucy now to Pavarotti, but learning about an art form that I knew nothing about. So you can in it, and Luciano started rather late as well in his career because originally he was a school teacher and then he was selling insurance and he just couldn't catch a break. And his voice wasn't mature, but through all of that, through all of those like backup careers that we always like do, right. He studied and he made his voice better, and he studied with the best coaches, and he came from a region in Italy that that had a lot of opera singers that were noted. Morella Frene was a childhood friend of his, and so they studied together, although her voice definitely matured sooner than his.
You know what I love seeing, I had to interject this, is the internal excitement that you have about learning. It's like, okay, here's the next project. When you just like jump into it, you just devour all that you can.
Yes.
Make it the best.
Yeah, exactly. That was good. That was like very Italian. Make it the best.
Now, how would it be? Make it the best. That's
I guess. I don't know. Yeah, right. That would be right. That would be Jewish. Right. Not that different. Food is a big deal. Not that different. Yeah. Food is a really big deal. I know that was that was the best, going to Italy.
I have to. Oh my God, Italy! I can see. I mean, I'm wanting to get everything into an hour a lot of times because you have so much wealth within you. And I was just remembering walking in your house, and whenever I walk in your house, I pass that Foo Fighter poster, and thanks. I just stand there and smile because I knew when we sat in acting class together, and here your name is on that poster, and
that was great because that's something that I loved. So, and I still love. I loved grunge in the 90s, and I loved Soundgarden and Nirvana, and I absolutely loved the Foo Fighters. And I knew when Dave was doing the Foo Fighters, I knew the whole story behind it back then.
Yeah.
And when I was, approached to come aboard that team, because I kept questioning, well, wait a second, aren't you going to discuss X, Y, and Z? And they were like, what? So I had, in that respect, I had more knowledge than and that was my first film. So I had more to offer. And I had friends who were doing a lot of these remote filming. So, which is what that was. So I had friends that helped us set up these cameras in so that we weren't in the way of the filmmaking process.
Right.
And kept that very tight. So it was just Dave's story and the story of the brotherhood of their band now. And again, they called it back and forth because we did go back and forth, and we went forward because this was, obviously a forward-looking piece that was celebrating where they are now and where they're going, and they're so wonderful because when we were about to lock, when we had already locked the Bee Gees film, I was at a charity event and they were performing, and Taylor, the drummer, said, "Hey, so what are you working on now?" And I told him the Bee Gees, and we just locked the Bee Gees film. And he said, "You got to open up the film. I'm a huge Bee Gees fan." And I wish we could have opened it up to interview him. And what they've been doing recently is they've been posting them doing covers of the Bee Gees songs.
Right, I've been hearing that.
Really, really great, really nice, really.
what I'm hearing all these movies, and we're by the way, everybody, we're jumping from like the recent to this one to that one, but it's just it's life swirling around. And from when you first said, okay, I'm a producer, to now, what was, there's so many lessons we learn and we grow with. What is one lesson that sticks into you that say, oh, I realize this now about producing?
I think it's I think it's a lot of it's a team sport. Documentaries are a team sport. So if you look at it that way, that you're and it's like, and having the right director leading it. Yeah. Our job, we're producers for hire, so our job is to create that team. And it's kind of like, matchmaking, because it has to be the right match.
Yeah.
And sometimes you wonder, well, I wish I could talk about these two films that we haven't announced yet, because you wonder, oh, well, that's interesting. But no one would have. I think Ron Howard doing the Beatles was like, casting 101. That was amazing. But Ron Howard doing Pavarotti was like, oh, that's interesting. Yeah. And here he took us on his journey. Like he took us on the Beatles and them being in a Ron used to say, like, when they're guys in a capsule, in space, because they were so young in their early 20s, and what they experienced was something so unique. They went viral before we had that term even. They were famous all over the globe so fast that it was something that we didn't understand then. And so I think a lot of it's a team sport. Patience is a really big one, and just perseverance. There's always a doc that gets away, one that you go, rats. That's what I wanted to do. But you don't, there's only so many hours in a day and in a year, and how are you going to tell all these stories? And the other thing that you have to really pay attention to is when contingencies are really important. You have to have a contingency in your budget. It's super, super
now
important.
For those watching who say, what's that word? What's a contingency?
Simply put, it's that extra money you put aside in case you need it. You don't always use your contingency, but it's there, planned in the budget, and it's there in case you need to have a little bit more of an edit. And we always formally and semi-formally test our films, kind of like you do a narrative feature.
Right.
You have to start a film. So I said patience, teamwork, contingency, which is a industry term, but before all of that, so I should have said this right at the beginning, you have to have a plan. Yeah. So before you start any film, before you open up an edit, you and your estate, or you and your team, whatever it is, the story that you're telling, you have to have a story map. And I know a documentary will go through different, down different rivers, down different paths, whatever metaphor you want to use. But you have to start with a basic, this is the story we want to tell, and this is how we think we can tell the story. Otherwise, if you don't, we've one of my partners, who founder of our company, always tells Nigel Sinclair tells a great story of a film that he lost millions of dollars. Now, we don't have millions of dollars to lose.
Yeah.
So you know, if you don't have, and that was the one film, this is years and years and years ago, the one film that he didn't have a map, a story map. And even though your story map will go through, like I said, evolutions, and you may crumple it up and start over, but if you don't start with a plan,
and allow it to breathe.
Yeah, of course.
So to say.
Of course.
Now I want to go back to the one of the names that you brought up.
Ron?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh my God. And when it's my, 50, I was going to say 56, but now it's 57-year-old brain where it goes, I'm going to hide right back here on my brain cell number 300. And so what about Ron Howard? I mean, it's working with Ron Howard, but also showing that you worked several times with him. I mean, and that shows about the collaboration and working with people again and again.
Well, he's I mean, being in a room with him is like a master class. He's very collegial, and very, and he knows story. I mean, we used to say, oh, Ron's got to come in and sprinkle his secret fairy dust over this. But it wasn't that, you would think that, well, Ron, what would Ron Howard do right now? But you can't, because he's got his life experience. He brings all of that towards everything that he does, and he knows story so well. And he's such I was going to say he's a normal guy, but yes, he is a normal guy, and his family are like, and his lovely wife, and his being, it feels like, the guy that you knew next door, down the street, or that you grew up with. So you could, but his genius is coming in and seeing where we're missing. Like, he could see something that's not connecting, that we couldn't put our finger on it. We know that something isn't working.
Right.
And then he'll go through, because he directed several films during each of these docs that we did with him. So it wasn't like he's on our busy A-list director isn't just, you don't make a lot of money in the doc world. So they come in and out of it. But believe me, when Ron was with us and sitting there with the edit, and most of the time he allowed us to record it so that we can go back and re-listen to it and take detailed notes. Because if you're taking notes while somebody's talking, a lot of times you miss things. So he allowed us to take notes solely for us. So, they're not, we deleted them. There's not, nothing, anything, but he allowed us to do that because we were missing some nuances that he was saying. And that's, it was like a master class. It was really like a master class.
Now, after being with Ron, or even before that time, would you ever want to direct? Do you have the desire?
I don't think so.
Yeah.
My gut is like, I just don't think so. I think I'm better at my relationships with the estates are like key. You have to have a authentic relationship with the estate, and a director has to have an arm's length distance with that, a little bit. I feel so we can then communicate, fears and hopes and dreams, whatever that, if we're working with the estate that's alive, certainly there's some fears that everybody has. There's no doubt, if somebody's coming into your world and they're telling you, we're only going to do 110 minutes about your career. Well, you can't do that, that it's very difficult.
Yeah.
So we then take it from this angle, a different angle, and say, we're going to tell a poem about this person's life, or, the Apollo. And you're going to get a feeling of the why of it all, why we're still talking about the Bee Gees, why we're still talking about Luciano Pavarotti. Why is it that when I hear him sing Nessun Dorma, it makes me feel something, but it doesn't work when somebody else sings?
Yeah.
Why is it that these songs of the Bee Gees go through 50 years and they wrote for these amazing artists, and Barry is still at it?
The word that came to mind is spirit.
Yeah.
Just a spirit that flows through them that is
timeless. Spirits have been flown. That's one of the titles of their albums. It's one of the best ones.
What's your biggest joy?
In this job, my biggest joy by far is when an estate, after you make a film, and that's going to make me cry. When they say you kept your word, meaning that has a lot of connotations to it, but it means that when they say you made a film that I am so proud of, that they're proud of, and that's big. That's my greatest joy. When the client, I call them the client, even though they're not the client, but I guess they are the client, because I feel like, I'm the first point of contact when it comes with the states. So I was I want to make them, it means a lot to me that the Luciano Pavarotti family now are in speaking terms. It means a lot to me emotionally, because life is too short. And when you watch somebody's life go by in 110 minutes, you realize how tenuous it is. And if you let those little things, and I shouldn't say that what happened with the first Mrs. Pavarotti was little, but because I'm not belittling her at all. She's woman. All these women that we interviewed in that film that have the biggest hearts, and they are filled with love, and the daughters of the maestro are remarkable, and that made me feel really good, that they felt that they had a visit with their dad after they saw the film. That's the biggest joy.
Well, I have to say one of my biggest joys, especially at this moment, is to know that I know you and love you and call you a friend and family, and it's a blessing that we keep going, that it's those holidays, it's those and that's another thing is in a working relationship, whether it's you and I or whether it's other people, it's about the give and take. It's about the breathing with each other. Somebody mentioned that the other day on an interview about breathing with each other,
Yeah, I mean, it's very true. Frank Marshall refers to his team as okay, it's the family, wow, Frank was a remarkable director too, because he sat with the editor, and the guy's like a genius. He's a quiet genius, Frank. And so yes, you're right, David. It's the breath, it's the moments in between, it's the conversations that you have over dinner, or over in between sitting in a room and discussing that paper draft, those moments in between where you think, oh, aha,
it makes life full.
Yeah.
Which brought me, just on a personal level, I'm so glad that we got to spend that moment, that breath, watching Mary Wilson on that stage. I can't believe, I'm still
stunned. Yeah.
And going back to the Apollo and seeing her in that, and then, just how it's all, how we're all connected in one way, and how
Yeah.
we all are affected by one another.
Yeah. Yeah. That's absolutely true.
Now going back to Corey, what do you want the most at this moment in your life?
At this moment in my life, harmony. I want all of us to just be, we all have different voices. we all are, metaphor, if I take it all the way, we all have that different sound, and we all move a different way, and we all look different. But if we move together, it's harmony. And that's what I want right now. My life and my work and the world, harmony.